right, we're starting our feeding rounds. Got the pump mounted onto a new pallet here. Got the hose wrapped up. Handles right here, easy access. It was kind of rigged it up last year. This is a little bit better setup, easier for me to access everything I need to without having to like stretch and reach, jump on the truck. Taking 2 totes of a 1-to-1 syrup. That way we've got enough syrup to keep us busy for the day. I was gonna say we're bringing new boxes. We're bringing some new boxes. I think this has good frames in it. That's why I threw that on there. So we can, if we find any hives that need supering, unlikely, but if it happens, we've got them. We do have some rotten bee boxes out in the bee yard I want to swap out. We're still trying to add some of the new frames that we have to replace some of the old foundation to try to entice them to draw everything out. I just throw a little cage with fuel and everything back on the back there. That's my little side box for the truck, basically. And there's the hose that's sticking out in the road. But pretty much ready to rock and roll, ready to go feed some bees. Bring the incubator out with us. You got to wash this sucker so it doesn't overheat. Got a few cells left. They're hatching tomorrow, so I got to get them in. I just keep a little inverter like this plugged into the truck. Got my terramycin just in case. So maybe we can rebuild a few hives, or some of the ones we tried rebuilding on the last visit have failed. You know, we can patch them up and drop a cell in them. And pretty much got everything we need for really patching up the yards today. We were able to get the new boxes repaired. These ones that were bulging out that I showed in last week's video. That piece was swollen out. Just are able to put some extra staples in that you can see. We were able to close them all back up. That's good, because I mean there's almost 30 here, and I know there's a bunch scattered around in the bee yards. I had to throw some on because we were so desperate for some of the boxes. So we didn't have to throw anything away. It seems like everything can be fixed. It's just some of the boxes that were a little bit warped, either straight from the factory from Man Lake or due to the pressure treating. I'm not 100% sure, but everything can be salvaged. That's great. So we're doing our best to spread around some of the new frames here and mix them in with some of the old frames. And hopefully that'll prime them to get up there and at least want to draw that out. It's just they have been drawing some of these old frames, but definitely not with the same level that the new frames are. They definitely prefer having the new foundation with a fresh coat of wax on them. You can see there is some foundation drawing. That was just from the first 2-gallon bucket of 1-to-1. You can see over there we've been coming around, and some of these buckets have collapsed and broken in just the first round of feeding. So we did order some more buckets. Because every yard I'm finding at least a couple bad buckets. There was one yard that had almost 10, and they're just not holding up. We're gonna have to just bite the bullet and buy some more, but it is good to see that they are producing some wax here. That's really great. It was just a small crack in this bucket, and then I just sort of pressed it, and boom, that happened. Man, they're giving out. Here's a queen I'm gonna have to call out and see how slow she's moving. Looks like her back right leg is broken, and her left center leg is broken off at the tip. She's just very slow. See how she's very sluggish? I mean, the colony's not terrible. Pattern's a little spotty, but I mean, there are mostly eggs in those cells. But we've got queen cells with us, and there's a lot of drones. I mean, look at that. She's just too much of a liability to leave alive, so I'll call her out, drop a new cell in. I added these medium and shallow supers on these single colonies on July 18th. It's been about a month, and I gave them a 2-gallon bucket of 1-to-1. This was a freshly extracted comb we made honey in, so it was all dry, and you can see they have capped off, which that's probably corn syrup, and filled it up quite a bit. And I don't know if you can see in there, but they've really fixed most of the frames, not all, but clearly have done some good with that syrup we gave them. That's great to see. This is one of our problem yards. We were able to rebuild 100% of the yard though with those cells, and it's a problem because it's just foundation bound. That's the main problem. It's just packed full of foundation. They were, as you saw, they were clearly drawing some though. We rebuilt the several we had, although this one's kind of partially getting robbed out. That's not great. We did take the time to change out some of the rotten boxes. There were a lot of just bad frames of foundation. We swapped them out with the new ones. There was just a lot of the wood of the foundation was breaking, the wood frame, so we bought those couple hundred, new wooden deep frames. So we're popping out the old foundation and popping them into the new wood frames. That's going to help a little bit. This yard just got bad equipment. I mean, that's the main issue. They're trying to grow, and they look better than I thought. This yard was extremely bad last year. I had to pull it very early in the fall. We were losing the hive, the yard to mites. There were bad queens. There was a huge pollen break in the fall. So I'm keeping an eye on it in case we have to move it to mustard. This was the only hive yard in the hive in the yard that was good enough for me to put a deep box of foundation on, because I do want to see if they'll draw it out. That's a pretty solid double deep. Most of the other colonies, we just had to, they were so weak, we had to pull just kind of one frame out of each hive to rebuild or to try to equalize a little bit. There's just not much I can do here. When the whole yard is bad, it's hard to fix. But we decided, since we had these cells, better go ahead and make an effort. You can see I'm missing buckets here. That's because some of those without buckets are the ones that we rebuilt that were dead, and so there wasn't a bucket here, obviously. And then of course several buckets broke. There were several other buckets that are about to break. So I'm making a new list of like yards that I need to come back around with those fresh buckets and just swap out. So I'll do that. Hopefully here in the next few days we'll have the delivery, I'm hoping. And that's really it. I really didn't want to spend this amount of time. We've been here for several hours to fix this yard. My plan was just to come in, fill the buckets, maybe pop a few hives in half, definitely check the flagged hives. But once we kind of got in here, I was like, I can't. There's just way too much work needed to be done here for me just to fill the bucket and leave. Yeah, I didn't feel good about it. There are some yards I can do that. I think the next yard I can probably do that in, but sometimes you got to stop. It doesn't matter what my plans are. When I see the bees need more time, I have to just stop and alter my schedule, because we were supposed to do many yards today. But I've spent half the day here, which would made a huge difference. So I mean, the yard needed it. As long as those splits don't get robbed out, there's a lot of drones. I've got good hope that they'll take, and maybe next time I can come and just fill the buckets up. All right, we're heading over to the next yard. So been popping about half the yard here. This is that new yard we got. Nothing. This was the yard that I decided that was really strong hive and a half. I came here 2 weeks ago, and we decided to put deep boxes of foundation because they were so incredibly strong. And this is the yard that triggered me to put supers on the other yards that were really good. But so far I haven't seen, they've taken all 2 gallons of a 1-to-1 syrup, and after 2 weeks, and have not drawn even one partial frame. No sign of wax production whatsoever. So not so good for this first round of feeding. Oh, so total bummer here. Nothing. I popped all the lids in this yard. They have all taken 2 gallons of the 1-to-1 syrup that I put on 2 weeks ago. No wax production whatsoever. The bees are barely even in that super at all. So a little disappointing. I had high hopes for this yard just because this is one of the best yards in the whole apiary. These suckers are monsters, which again, 2 gallons is not really a whole lot. We are smack in the middle of August, so they may just be using it for their calorie needs. I don't know. The last yard we just did, there was foundation drawing, but it was in the brood nest. It wasn't in some giant super. I don't have any bait comb or anything up there. I just want to see if they'll just draw these, if we just keep slamming them with 1-to-1. So did refill all the buckets, so they now have an extra 2 gallons for a total of 4 gallons of 1-to-1 syrup. I'm going to try to come back in 2 to 4 weeks. My goal is 2 weeks, because this is kind of my test yard to see if we can get these girls to draw deep boxes of foundation in this season just by doing a thinner syrup. There is no foundation in the bottom box, so if there is wax production, I'll see it in the top box. So all right, well, we're gonna go head off to the next yard. Nothing to report here, sadly. Had to blow through this yard really quick. I wanted to spend more time and dig through everything, queen check everything. We haven't been here in about a month, I believe. There was a big storm coming. It actually might pass us, but it was thundering. It seemed like it was about to start drizzling on us. So really what we did is one of us just started filling the buckets. There were 9 dead outs here, and I rebuilt the dead outs. All I did, you can see the flagged hives there, I just took the double deeps, snapped them in half, and just set them over on the dead out spots on the pallet. We left the lids from last time. I did my best to find the queen, but I was in a rush because I thought we were about to get rained out, so I only found a handful of those queens. If I didn't find the queen, I just flagged both hives. I didn't know where they were at. We had 7 queen cells, so I just triple checked the brood frames to make sure I couldn't find the queen on there, and then I gave that box the cell, and I'm assuming like the queen's in the other one. I'm not totally sure. So I had to rebuild 2 of these hives with no queen, no cell, and I felt okay doing that. We're seeing a lot of drones. There were 3 queenless hives from the last time we were here 4 weeks ago, and all 3 no cell, no queen splits. I even supered them with like a deep box foundation. All 3 of them were queen right. They had just started laying eggs, just barely. So I was like, the heck with it, you know, I'll make 2 queenless splits, who cares? So we did get this yard back up to a full 96 hive capacity. This is a really great fall yard for us. They are 100% drawing foundation. Not a ton, but several frames worth in almost every hive. They're definitely drawing the new frames better. They're still drawing the old frames. They've only had 2 gallons of 1-to-1. So I'm really, really happy to see that. The brood boxes are all solid comb. I think we tried to give each box like, I don't know, a couple 2 or 3 of the new frames of foundation the last time we were here. I don't know if that helped them get up there or they were just going to do it anyways, because I mean they were singles and they had made a little bit of honey here, not much, so they got right up into those top boxes. Populations are looking fantastic. We did manage to change out some. We had a lot of bad boxes here. I think we've changed out most of them. So like a lot of these, I'm just gonna have to spend a day coming around and giving these little ones that we've been rebuilding today buckets, because I just don't have enough buckets because they were dead. But this yard is really turned around. This was my problem yard. That's what we were kind of doing today. We were trying to hit some of the yards that were in rough shape. We wanted to get food on them, and they were only bad because of foundation. And I really need this yard to go to California, because that's 25% of a semi here nearabouts, and it's so good in the fall. We made these are the ones that were drawing foundation naturally in October, and I assumed last year that it was goldenrod. So had to get this one back on its feet, and honestly they were doing great on their own. They just needed that little bit of bucket. There's a tad bit of robbing over there, not terrible. I hope that's not going to be a problem. Again, they always get that way when the storms start coming. But yeah, so we rebuilt quite a number of dead outs today. We have blown through almost 2 full totes of syrup, it looks like. I got a little bit here left. So we are about to be out. A few more days of feeding like this, and I'm just gonna have to order another syrup truck. I just don't think we're gonna sell any syrup this year, because I'm just gonna take that down, because we're blowing through it so quick. And I know the last yard didn't draw anything, and that was sad, but those were triples. These doubles, and in the hive and a halves too, are just, they do seem to be drawing foundation with this 1-to-1. So I really want to prioritize our hives getting the food that they need. I don't want to have to get stuck buying another semi, because I sell a few 100 gallons too many to somebody else for honestly not that much profit. So I think that's the way to go. But that's all we can do today, because just in case that storm does hit, I'm tired. But yeah, this yard is looking fantastic. New buckets got here. It's a couple hundred more. We're just going to take a handful of these out with us every time we go out to a bee yard, just to start culling out some of those bad ones. I went to a yard yesterday, and there were 16 buckets that were either outright had shattered or were so close to shattering that I didn't feel comfortable refilling them. So we're going to run out this morning, give them 16 brand new buckets so we can get ahead of that explosion that I'm sure that was about to happen. And hopefully that's enough. I really don't want to order any more. These semis are not cheap to get here. I figured we probably needed 100, but with the shipping cost and seeing how rough they are, we were like, let's just order 200. If we're lucky, we'll have a few spare left over. We were able to cage about 13 queens this week from the minis. Thank goodness. We definitely need them. Got a few cells with us too, so we're running around to some of these yards that were recently rebuilt that we flagged. And some of them took. These were like hives that we made 4 weeks ago that we were letting try to raise their own queens, and actually a lot in this yard failed. So came back, we dumped 3 frames of brood in them with some bees, and we're going to give them mated queens the best we can, because I think like 10 out of 48 hives here or something are queenless. That's too high, and they've already had trouble. I don't know why. Queens just aren't there. I don't know, maybe something got them. So we're going to dump some mated queens so we can guarantee, well, almost guarantee these are going to get back. We got to get this yard up because it's a really good location for us. You can see there are a lot of hives that are missing buckets. When I was out here, they were really bad. I think there were 16, those 16 buckets I ended up breaking. So we're going to add some brand new buckets there, give everybody here a mated queen, and we'll be off to the next yard. So this hive here was a drone laying colony. I, for the life of me, could not find her to pinch her. Usually what I'll do in that situation is I'll take all the frames of bees and I'll shake it off here in the front. And a lot of times the workers will drift back. The drone layer will stay in the grass with a little bit of cluster of attendants. So you see a ball of bees on the ground, and that's usually how I can spot them and kill them, but I couldn't find her. And there were plenty of eggs in the hive, so I suspected she was still there. Because we have so few mated queens with us, I don't dare putting a mated queen in there and risk that drone layer killing the new queen while she's in the cage. What I did do is I dropped 3 frames of mixed brood in the bottom there with bees from other colonies. I'm hoping those bees will kill that queen, or maybe her own bees will turn on her or begin to supersede her. That's the other option. The only other option you can really do is just stack the colonies, and I don't really want to do that because we're trying to rebuild the hive. So instead of risking a mated queen, I've got some of these kind of janky looking queen cells. I made a mistake feeding the cell builders 1-to-1 this past week. They were already strong and a bit honey bound, and they drew out the frames with the cells in them, so it was hard to pull the cells off without damaging them. So like this is one that's probably okay. It's just got a lot of extra burr comb. I'm willing to take a risk with this cell to drop in here, and that's what I'm going to do. One thing we've started doing with the buckets is when we're putting a brand new bucket on, not new as in like it's the thing was just manufactured, but adding a bucket to the colony, we'll hang it off the side here a little bit, and you see how it's going to drip. Normally that drips all into the colony on the brood nest. It can wash out the queens. Could drip on those new mated queens that we put in that are stuck in the cage. So, you know, it's gonna drip no matter what. It's got to pull that vacuum, but better that it falls here. Now there's a tad bit of risk that if you've got a lot of robbing behavior, that might attract. Usually when we're putting buckets on, though, we're putting buckets on the entire yard. We've just got a few exceptions like this where we just have to replace these bad buckets. So it makes me a little concerned, but I think it's the lesser evil than it just all of that dripping right into the hive itself. It'll seal here in a couple of minutes, and then we'll just slide it over the hole there, and they'll be able to get their food. I've been running around and changing buckets this afternoon. You can see I've swapped out some of those white ones for the black ones. There were 3 yards, this is one of them, that I didn't have enough buckets when I was feeding, either because the white buckets had broken or there were some dead outs I rebuilt and I didn't have a bucket for them. So I was just going to run out and just top them off. And I just fed like this yard and the other 2 yards 2 or 3 days ago. And I gave them 2 gallons of 1-to-1. So you would think they would still have a pretty full bucket when I came back. But I decided just to sort of just shake the bucket a little bit to see if there was still syrup in these old white ones. And then I started to realize that there were several that were empty. And all of these white buckets here have leaked all their syrup out. There's about 14 buckets or so across the 3 yards. You can see they're kind of on the bottom on the ring there. It's got that crack. So it's just been leaked out. It's leaked out. I found one hive that had been washed out to death. The other colony survived, but of course they didn't produce, they haven't produced any wax to draw the foundation. They didn't put any weight on, they didn't grow. And that was kind of a bummer. So normally, and I never would have caught something like this. The only reason I did is because, again, I just fed these a few days ago. Generally, I'll come around and feed once a month or whenever we get to it, and all the buckets are empty. And so I never would have really noticed unless there was just a massive, huge crack in it or it was leaking really fast. But yeah, some of them just have very small, like see there on the corner, just small cracks. And my method of sort of hanging the bucket off the side of the hive and let it drip. And when I see it stops dripping, I know the bucket's good. Then we slide it over the hole. That is not 100% effective because I guess some of these really itty bitty cracks are just causing it to drip very slowly over a period of days. So that means that tells me there's more buckets that have washed out, but I won't catch them because I don't have time to run around and check. I don't have time to drive to all the yards and just shuffle the buckets. So I'm gonna have to be extra careful, and we've got to make sure these 200 buckets stretch. I don't want to have to buy more. So anyways, we're trying to fix that up, and this yard, I tell you, was the one that really set warning bells off for me when I was feeding it, because I had already given this yard 2 gallons, and I came back to top the bucket off. They hadn't grown, a lot of them had not grown at all, and I couldn't figure out why. Like there was no honey, there was no wax production, they were still kind of light, which these hives here are pretty small in general, but I think it's just because the buckets were bad. They hadn't gotten any food. And I took a closer look at them and just saw, you know, they were just starting to fall apart. So I don't know. I'm going to change out what I can. But yeah, we're definitely going to have some buckets slip through. And we just can't afford to just buy new buckets for every hive. Even though I know long term that would be a good investment. We would save money. But, you know, we just have to watch out this time of year because we don't have the same kind of revenue coming in as we do in spring and in summer. We make most of our money in spring. And we make a nice chunk in the summer selling honey and stuff. Fall and winter, we just have to be cautious, you know, so if we can make room to buy more buckets, that is definitely going to be a massive priority. I hate to lose a $200 colony over a $5 bucket, but we'll just have to kind of see what the budget will allow us to do, and I'll just keep a close eye on any buckets that are maybe leaking from here on out. Well, this sucks. Got stuck a little bit. Crap, man. I pulled in here too far. Usually I don't pull back past the grass, but I was in here feeding and I didn't bring the extension for the hose, and I didn't want to carry all the buckets over here, stupidly. And it was sinking a little bit when I got in here and I stopped, but you know, I pumped out over 100 gallons of syrup. So I thought maybe I could, make it, but definitely not. Somebody's gonna come try to pull me out, but I'm stuck pretty bad. I'm free. I can't believe it. Landowner's son, maybe? I'm not actually, I don't even know who it was. Landowner called like his brother-in-law because he's out of town, and then some other guy swung up with the truck, and I thought it was him, and I was like, hey man, can you pull me out? And he's like, well, nobody called me, but he was like, I don't know who you are, but sure, yeah. So nice guy, had a nice, he had a little dually as well, and just yanked me arm right onto there, had a tow strap, no problem. I guess the good thing about sand is it comes right on out. You can just slide it right on out of there. Just like I could slide right on back in there. And lesson learned, this is the second time I've been stuck here in the last few years. I thought the 4-wheel drive would get me out of here this time, but negative. Stay away from soft sand. All right, off to the next yard. I'm out here checking on my first yard that's had 4 gallons of syrup, just to see how it's doing. This yard had a lot of deep foundation out there. Almost every box out here was 10 frames of just deep foundation. And this yard is a mix of new foundation that we bought this year and old foundation. And I just want to see what the effects of the 4 gallons of syrup is going to have on it. I'm down to my last 100 gallons of syrup. I did order a syrup truck. It should be here in a few days. And there's 48 colonies here. There's 47, but I'm going to rebuild the one that died. And so this yard's going to eat up the last bit of syrup. So this yard will be the first yard also that gets 6 gallons. And it kind of gives me an idea of what I might be expecting as far as foundation drawing. This was that yard I came to almost a month ago. I had a few spare mated queens, and I rebuilt some of the yard with mated queens, and some I built that were queenless. And I think I'm about a week early for the ones that I built without a queen, to really queen check those, but I can at least check, see if they're alive, if they need a frame of brood or something. I did start, in my old videos I used to show I would take the cage and I would slide it in the entrance, and I still do that if I'm in a rush. But I may have mentioned this in the past, but I have started putting the queen cages between the top bars. Not because I think it increases acceptance or anything, but just because when I pop the lid, I can see their cages there, and I go, okay, yeah, I made the split with a cage. Because this hive over here, was a split that I rebuilt, and I didn't have any queens. It was just a totally queenless split. And, you know, I used to write the date, and, you know, I would write sell or queen, or, you know, no sell, no queen on the flagging tape there. But you can see the flagging tape starts falling apart. It's, you know, even after a month in the sun, it starts to break. The marker starts to fade. That plastic queen cage there set at in the top bars, and definitely not set underneath the bucket, right? You don't want your syrup bucket dripping on them. It's just a way more effective marker for me. And then the other thing I'm doing is I'm taking all these cages out, and I am sticking it right here in the corner of the entrance, and I'm making it stick out enough that I can see it when I'm working the yard. And that's also just a marker for me to go, hey, this thing got a mated queen. Because if I ever have issues with the mated queens, like we have a problem with the customer, or if I just start seeing they're not performing like I would like them to, I can kind of come back and check right away from just looking at the hive to know this one got an adult queen that I installed. And that just helps me collect information, basically. And, you know, we'll yank them out at the end of the year. But anyways, that is what I'm doing now. But if I had a bunch of queens and I was in a rush, I would just slide them underneath. I've never had any problems with it. The problem is you don't know that it got a cage versus a, you know, perhaps a cell or a queenless one. You can see here in this split as well. And this split was made, again, just under 4 weeks ago. Clearly I didn't have enough comb to make the split, so I'm not sure exactly how it was built. You know, a lot of times when I'm short on comb, I'll do, you know, 5 frames of comb and 5 frames of foundation. And you can see they have drawn out that foundation. And so far what I've been doing is I've just been running around to the queenless hives first and checking them. That gives me an idea of what I need to pull from the larger queen-right colonies. I gotta just go ahead and get these rebuilt first. But so far, everything has queen that had a mated queen that I installed. And they're clearly drawing foundation, and the larger colonies are too. Now obviously these hives, now this hive only had 2 gallons, right? Because this was one I just rebuilt, but a lot of these other ones have had the 4. And I did pop a few lids, and it seems like most everybody's drawing. And the other bee yards that I've been checking that have only had 2 gallons of syrup have all to some degree drawn foundation. Most of them have drawn a few frames. There's been a few very nice yards that have drawn almost a full 10 frame deep box. But every yard in every instance is drawing at least some kind of wax. And so I'm just feeling really good about having this foundation drawn out. I was starting to feel like I was going to get 100% queen right in this yard. But no, looks like we got a drone layer there. I'm going to find her pincher. And I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this one. 4 brood, no cell, no queen. And we'll see if we can jumpstart them. This poor hive here looks like it was getting robbed out. See all the dead bees at the entrance there. Big pile of them. I didn't see any signs of disease, no deformed wings or anything. So, and there's a lot of robbers over here. I did check, and there's a queen. Look, there she is. Blue dot and everything. You know what's strange is there were no eggs, larvae, or cat brood in the colony whatsoever. There was maybe 2 frames of what I assume is their workers, because they seem pretty calm, that were hanging in there. It just seems, and this is not a queen that I installed. This hive was marked as a queen-right colony, and with it being a single, that tells me it was probably a good double deep that I felt confident splitting in half and probably drop. Usually what I'll do is I'll just split it and fill the dead out spot. So this flagged hive here was probably the top of this colony, and I would have only split it if it was very strong. That was probably the original queen here that was in this hive, because I made sure I always find the queens before I crack a double deep in half, and we mark them as we find them. So what's strange is it just really appears like she 100% quit laying. And again, it's been a little less than 4 weeks since I was here, so, and she clearly had brood, you know, less than a month ago. I wouldn't have split it. So it's almost like when I cracked it in half, she just quit laying. And I don't know, I really don't know what happened. There's no sign of mites. Usually when they run out of sperm, if they become infertile, you know, they become drone layers. But there's no sign of any type of brood, even drone brood. It's just like she just stopped laying, you know, at least 3 weeks ago, possibly longer. I don't know exactly how long it takes for a queen to run out of sperm and then turn into a drone layer. I always just assumed it happened kind of instantaneously, you know. Maybe it does take some time for that change to take effect. I don't know if me cracking the double deep in half stopped her from laying. I don't know why or how that could have happened, especially because this colony would have been 2 full boxes of bees for me to split it. It wasn't like it was a 2-frame hive and I split it in half. So I don't know if she's good or not. She's definitely not good this second, and this hive's pretty much lost. I am going to try to rebuild it. I'm going to have a little bit of problems since all these robbers are blocked onto it, but I'm going to find her and pinch her, and then I'm just going to drop 4 frames of brood in here if I can get the robbers off of them, and we'll just try again. Here's a good example of one. This is kind of the average I'm seeing drawing in this yard. This is after 4 gallons. Got about 4 or 5 frames that are mostly drawn out like this. Pretty good, not 100% or anything. But, you know, this was brand new foundation that we bought and was put on after the honey flow. Now it's about 4 gallons of syrup. This is a good yard too. Again, you know, they've got plenty. They've got at least 2 types of pollen coming in. Not seeing any mite damage. So they're not there yet. We'll see how this 3rd bucket handles them, but you can see, and they've got a healthy way. Like the bottom box down here is completely plugged out with honey. Queen has not gone up here and started laying yet in the super, although she'll probably be able to whenever she wants to. So we're looking at 4 gallons. We'll say to draw at about half a box. That's assuming there's no other nectar coming in, which usually there's not this time of year, but it has been a weird year. So I don't know. I mean, is it going to take 2 more buckets to completely draw it out? I mean, honestly, I kind of feel like, yeah, so maybe roughly 8 gallons of 1-to-1 to draw this particular type of hive, this particular box, and this yard out, and probably cap this honey off, which would be quite a bit of food. You know, probably it's still probably worth it though. I mean, just to have all this nice fresh comb. The stuff's not like old. The cells are large, so your bees aren't going to be too small. It's not filled up with any kind of medication or anything. The bees are going to be healthier having all this wax, so it's probably worth it. It'll be interesting to see how the other yards do as well as they get more syrup. Now you can clearly see the brood boxes really are just slammed with food. Most of the top bar is just packed full of honey. I'm sure that's corn syrup honey. They're just really, really full. There's not a lot of room for the queen to even lay on the bottom. This top box is not quite as well drawn as some of the others, but there's still something there. You see that frame there? They're kind of swelling out. But they've got the honeycomb there on the bottom bars. And there's bees up there, so I mean, they are working on it. But this one's still got a long ways to go. They don't even really have 1 full frame. But they are clearly not shy of calories. Here's a box that has drawn almost all 10 frames. That was old foundation now. Old junk. And look at that. Queen has actually got up here and is laying. It's looking really good. It's funny, they've drawn the old frames here better than they have on some of the new ones. And it's been like that. In general, they prefer the new stuff, but they clearly are drawing the old frames. These were probably, you know, wax moth at the start of the year that we were scraping like crazy. Who knows, you know? I know we were throwing away we've been trying to throw away those plastic frames. I just absolutely hate them. But it got up here somehow. But the bees have made some nice wax on it. I'm not going to throw it away now. So you can see it's been kind of all over the place. We've got about a full box here. We had that box over there that had 1. There was another box somewhere back over there, you know, that had 5. You know, so it has been random, which is exactly how it is during the honey flow, right? And we put deep boxes of foundation on to make honey. A few hives do it, some kind of partially do it, some don't really do it at all. The only thing I'm kind of noticing as an exception right now is that all of the hives are producing some degree of wax. So it just makes me feel really, really good about this. So clearly they all, on average, I've still got to keep pumping food to them. And these will get it, you know, these are all going to get the other 2 gallons here. So if I give all the hives, if I'm just going to make a ballpark guess, and let's just say on average, it's going to take 8 gallons of a 1-to-1 syrup. And most yards are just getting their 2nd bucket. If I give them 2 more buckets, 1 bucket a month each, that means everybody will get a 3rd bucket in September, and then everybody will get a 4th bucket in October. Usually we get a little boost in wax production because of the goldenrod. If we get a lot of rain and the love bugs don't get too bad in October, we'll get a little boost there too. So And I think we can make that syrup pretty close, stretch out this second load through that time period. It'll be a little close. So yeah, I could see us going into November, number one, being 100% out of syrup and have to maybe buy a third load, and number two, potentially having the vast majority of all this foundation drawn out. The only exception I've seen to it not working is that 1 yard that was triple deeps. You know, that we put the third deep box of foundation on those hive and a halves. Well, they weren't triple deeps. Yeah, it was a hive and a half with a deep on. I've only checked on that 1 yard so far. I haven't gotten around to the other yards that we put a third super on. I'm probably going to do that next week just because I'm not going to go out there if I don't have syrup to feed them. And, you know, we can still help that a little bit, probably by moving some brood up into the third box, some bait comb or whatever. I'm trying to avoid that. That's just a ton of extra labor, but it is on the table there if we have to do it. But even still, all those yards that we did add a third story to, they already have all their comb drawn out in the first two boxes. We just have the third box on to try and get even a surplus of comb. So technically, we don't have to have foundation drawn there. We still got all those singles at the house. Kind of an issue, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small problem to deal with and probably not one that's going to really hurt us one way or another. So yeah, you know, in my head, it's all going to work out. We'll just have to kind of keep along and see how the bees do. My plans only work out about 1% of the time. Well, the bees have their mind of their own. They have their own plans, but I think we just keep the feed on them. We make sure the mites stay down, and keep rebuilding these ones that have flags, you know, that are queenless or dead. Hold our numbers up. I'm trying to get us back up to 16. Let me get this brood in the hive here before it melts. It is extremely hot today. I'm trying to kind of get us back to 1600. That's the goal. I would like to have 1600 queen ride, but at least build 1600. I feel like that's pretty good to get the 3 loads out of, because that would basically give us 4 loads. Not that we're trying to send the 4, just to give us a buffer to pull from, to combine, so we can have, you know, we're going to have some winter mortality. It's just a fact of life. And that's a pretty, 400 hives is a pretty good buffer. Remember, we only need the 1200. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. I'll probably adjust that as we keep chugging along. But so I only need to technically build about 100 splits. And, you know, I built 10 hives yesterday. I built 10 hives before that. This yard, I'm only going to increase by 1 because there's only 1 dead out. But there are a few hives like this that had failed. So I'm dumping more brood into them. So they're hopefully we're not going backwards. We're at least maintaining, and every day I'm kind of inching a little closer to that 1600 number that I'm aiming for. And then, you know, we're still hoping the cells will pop up here soon and that we can get some queens going not long after that, and that'll help too. It's just rebuilding these things with 4 brood, no queen, no cell. You know, it's kind of a desperation move on my part, but it's working well enough that I'm going to keep at it. So everything's really going pretty good. We just have to keep pushing. And I just can't take a break, otherwise we'll lose control of this. But right now everything's pretty steady, minus those singles at the house, and again, not a major concern at the moment. One thing I've been doing this week, especially since I saw I'm about to run out of syrup, so I might have a little bit of downtime, is, you know, one of the goals I had set for myself this year was to get through all of my wax moth comb. You know, we had hundreds of boxes, thousands of frames. We hired Emily to scrape the stuff this year. So all the shallows and the mediums are all done. All I have left are about 30 deep boxes, and these are some of the worst. I've got a few more sitting on the trailer at the house, but I brought the bulk of it and I tried to get the worst of it. So some of these little singles out there that are now queen right and are looking pretty good, I want to give them a deep box of foundation because I want this yard to be a double deep yard. You know, I'm about to feed them, and they're strong enough they can handle it. But there's some of these days where I've still got quite a bit of daylight left, but I'm probably not going to have time to go do a whole nother 12 pallet yard. So instead of going home early, I'm kind of forcing myself to scrape this stuff for the supers. I do have some supers that are good, so if we're busy, you know, I can throw them on if we get in a rush. But I've got time, and I've noticed if I try to scrape it at the house, I'm far too tempted to go inside and knock off early because I hate scraping comb. And this stuff is the nastiest, that dark black pupil casings. You can see freaking wax moth cocoons on the box everywhere. Totally just really sucks. But if I'm out in the bee yard, I'll do it. And I'll go, okay, like I need about a dozen, maybe 10 to 12 boxes, I'd say, for supers out here. And I've got enough here. So I'm just going to sit in the shade and I'm going to do it. And, you know, I do another yard or two like that and I'm done. And it's a huge deal that we're about to have this finished. I've had wax moth piled up for years. I mean, like years and years. And it's always been a goal to get through it. And every year I never really get through it. But we're going to finish this year. I mean, I'm going to finish, you know, if not this week and the next week. I'm so close. And I've been really good. There's been a couple days I cheated, but I've been pretty good about, if I do find a box of wax moth, I scrape it before I put it on the truck and I take it home. That way it's done. There's been a couple days I've been a little tired or I've had too many doubts and I didn't do it, but I've been pretty good about it. And I just want to be free. So, because once this stuff piles up, I can't afford to just burn that stuff and buy, because you see people online, they're like, just burn it, burn it, burn it, burn it all, buy new everything. I'm like, how much money do you have, man? And I get that your time's worth a lot. That's why I time it on days like today where I don't have a whole lot else that is a big priority to do. I did my yard that I was setting out. So I'm going to spend a couple hours of scraping, you know, and so I'm going to chip away at it. And it's fine. I don't have to pay anybody. I can just do it myself, save a little bit of money. And that's what I'm going to do. And next couple hours are going to suck. But you know what? I'm going to be a dozen boxes closer to being finished. And that's a good thing. Well, if anybody wanted to know what a dozen boxes of wax moth comb looks like on the ground, there you go. Some nasty stuff. The ants will be over here and take care of whatever larvae are going down there that are still running around. Had a bunch of old broken frames, sorted that out. Got a little bit of foundation. Hey, freed up 2 nice boxes. It's a little too late for me to want to change any hives out. I still got to feed them real quick, but got it all cleared out. I'm not gonna lie, I hated every stinking second of it. After about 3 or 4 boxes in, I was like, I'm done. I hate this. Forget it. I'm going home. But I had to coax myself. I was like, come on, Matthew, you can do it. Come on, one more box, man, one more box. And it was like, I grinded through it, but I got it done. See, I'm about to run out of daylight now. I've just got to get this place fed and clean up and get out of here. Feels good now that it's done. I'll be honest. That empty spot on the truck makes me very, very happy.